There is over dependence on to hire someone who is answer that question of the interviewer in your resume.
If you are not investing time in your personality, in your personal development, resume might not that.
That degrees don't say.
Organizations are investing heavily in finding talent, but they often overlook what helps talent to thrive. Nowadays, the challenge isn't simply attracting skilled people, it's actually creating a workplace where individuals feel seen, heard, valued, and empowered to contribute their best work. This episode explores the connection between hiring, psychological safety, workplace dignity, leadership, and human potential through the lens of coaching humanistic leadership and a real world HR experience. In this episode, we will examine why some organizations consistently unlock talent while others struggle to retain and engage it. More importantly, this episode will answer the question: are companies missing talent, or are they failing to create an environment where talent can flourish? Welcome to the Hiring Loom by Scatalyst, where we explore the realities of hiring, leadership, and future of work. Today's guests bring a unique perspective that combines corporate HR leadership with coaching, workplace well-being, and human-centered leadership. K Madhuri is a senior HR leader, professional certified coach, researcher, and advocate for humanistic management and workplace dignity. For over 2 decades, she has worked with organizations, leaders, and professionals, helping them navigate growth, communication, well being, and performance. All the buzzwords that we hear nowadays. She has done it all. Her philosophy is inspired by a very simple but powerful belief: people flourish when they are seen, heard, and accepted for who they are. At a time where organizations are discussing AI, skill shortage, productivity, and the future of work, her perspective reminds us of something equally important: the human behind the employee. Welcome, everyone, to the Hiring Room by Scatalyst. Welcome, Madhuri. It's an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you, Nandini.
Let's begin today's episode by a few questions. We have a very interesting lineup of segments. But to start with, let's sort of try to understand that you've almost spent 2 decades working with people and organization. What has changed most in the workplace during that time, from 2 decades to now, if we look at the modern setup?
Hmm. See, you have to look at the world, what has changed in the world before we look at what has changed in the workplace, right? So when we joined the workforce back in early 2000s, so we were talking about VUCA world. If you have heard that acronym, it stood for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And now coming to the 2018 onwards, a new word, Bani, has been, given. It stands for brittle. It's like how fragile the work environments are, how, and anxious, not even ambiguous. Now it's anxious. And it's almost like, it's non-linear, and it's also incomprehensible. So we're looking at a Bani world now. And given the other changes that happened, significant ones, according to me, is the Companies Act, the modifications in Companies Act, which made it mandatory for us to do CSR. So we have roped in the society, came into, has become a part of the organization's responsibility now. Then the women directors. So women have had a seat on the, on the board now in big corporates. So that is a prominent change. And of course, the digitalization and the advent of the AI, the gig work, and all the remote working or how COVID changed shape, and like how we are doing a lot of digital FaceTime nowadays. So that has influenced the kind of work. And most importantly, according to me, is how people have changed at the workplace. In our generation, when we joined, we were looking for stability, we were looking for growth, and we were a one company sort of people still now, like, we join and we stay there for a lifetime until we retire, we marry the company. So now the needs have changed. Now the new generation is looking for more purpose, meaning, psychological safety. They're looking for adventure, and they're not wanting to kind of stay there. That is stuckness for them. And there is also this complexity of four generations working together. So there are boomers still moving out slowly, there is Gen X, then there are the millennials, and the Gen Z has joined. And so it's a lot of complexity. And yeah, I think these are all the major changes that I think.
Yeah, I think you're speaking from like the very bird eye perspective, wherein you're looking at your generation, but you're also sort of you're very welcoming as to in terms of how other generation is coming in. And you very rightly said points of women entering the workforce, and they are not entering to exit after, let's say, starting a family, but they've entered to stay. They've entered to sort of do some work to have an impact. So it's changing policies to another level, rightly said. In the way you have answered this question also makes me put forward my next question. You're very cautious about using words. Your approach is very human in nature. So can you also sort of explain or help understand our audience and listeners what first drew you to coaching, counseling, and humanistic leadership alongside HR?
Yeah. Uh, I think that every person has an inclination, right? Like, and human resources taught me the systems approach. Like, I'm basically an operations person. When I joined MBA, my idea was to do a master's in operations management. But then some circumstances happened, and like I had to switch over to human resource management. And so it gave me a systems perspective. But then slowly, while I was working with people and working with HR, like I really saw that every human is much more than the role, much more than the organizational identity. And it is very important to see that person, to be able to kind of help thriving. Thriving is not just the human, it's also the organization. It's like a coexistence. So the interdependence. So I had an inclination, like, there was a larger algorithm to solve here, like, which is like, which is dynamic, which is like continuously evolving. And I thought that, I accidentally came across certain human labs and the T groups, if you have heard of the concept. So after that, I really thought this is the area. Like it felt like, it felt like my ikigai. Like this is where my purpose lies, and I love doing it. And somehow I think I'm good at it. And so that's how I got drawn into this. And then I found my research area of workplace dignity and humanistic management. And I found certain, like it's like the universe manifests and it gets you into where you are. So that's how I'm drawn into that. And I'm largely hugely influenced by Carl Rogers and other, psychologists who what is they propagate about like unconditional regard and a mutual respect. And I think workplaces need this the most, because if you see the human, then everything else automatically happens. Like you unleash the potential and you need not think about any single thing that you have to get done. Performance comes just like that naturally.
Yes, yes, rightly said. Be it our Bollywood movies or international authors writing, they all say that when you are actually drawn to something, universe manifests to support you. to push you into that direction because you're actually helping a lot more people. So according to you, Madhuri, do you think is this concept more relevant in today's time, or was it relevant back then as well?
You mean coaching and counseling?
Or yes, as well as the humanistic approach that you tried to answer.
Ah, humanistic approach, I think, is the approach.
Yes,
But like as you see, as the world has evolved, we have had times when we went through, great economic depressions and such scenario, and the capitalistic viewpoint had some merit at that point of time. And the beauty of humanistic management is you do not judge any perspective. You do not judge. You openly accept. You see, like because every strategy we have adopted has met some need of ours, and maybe that was the way at that point of time. So we are no judges of our past, because the decisions are taken at that moment and the best for them. And retrospective judgment of decisions doesn't really help. So humanistic management is any day valid, but then it doesn't judge the capitalistic movement. But it is time now more than any other time, with the increasing complexity, with the kind of the resource crunch, the environmental issues that we are facing, and the imminence of sustainability. So humanistic management is more relevant today than any other day, and it will continue to be relevant. So it's more about seeing the whole. It's not about, looking at the world in parts and taking the
yes,
human as a resource. So it's more about, a holistic and a more spiritual perspective to work. Yeah.
correct. Yes, very, very rightly said. And also, if we look at this era where there is AI, there is analytics, and then there is productivity metrics, you have to do it that way, you have to meet this target. Do you think organizations are becoming more human or like less human?
I think it's a little bit of both. So I would say that, a lot of AI has its merits. Like I'm a big fan of AI. So AI has its merit. It cuts your, routine work. Like it makes it so easy for you. Like I need not crunch my Excels to see, what they're saying. I need not really, again, go through my PDFs. Like I get a summary. So I love AI. But I think it's also, to some extent, like how we are using it. So AI should be your assistant, your helper, and your buddy. It shouldn't drive you. So I think organizations are also trying to becoming trying to become more humane, uh, while and I think it's all humanity. The challenge that we are facing with AI, it's our humanity, and we are trying to embrace it. And humanity and humanistic management is more relevant in the context of AI, and the fear and and the sense of threat that is coming up amongst people, that are we going to be replaced? Do we still matter? Are we valid? Are my skills valid? So I think it's both ways, like, yeah.
Okay, trying to continue from that same conversation thread, that there are struggles in workplace. Like it's always going to be like that. You can't have a workplace where there are no problems, there are no struggles. But what are people struggling today at work, if you were to give your perspective? And do you think that leaders are often failing to see that or notice that? And is it impacting performance or organization at large?
Hmm. I think people are struggling more with, a sense of doubt, maybe, like, as I said, with reference to AI is some part of it. And then we are also struggling with a collective kind of isolation. And it's really weird, right? Like each of us are struggling with this loneliness, and somehow we are together in this loneliness. And as we look at the statistics of depression and mental health issues that are coming up, and the youngsters are facing it, like, it's difficult for all generations, and you see that there's a lot of burnout in youngsters as well. So I think they're struggling to be seen and heard, and to be understood, to be understood. And leaders, what was the question, if I may ask you again, about leaders? Like, what do
We're trying
leaders
to
miss? Is it?
understand how do they, yes, what do they miss? What do they fail to notice in this entire process?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they would fail, because that would go against humanistic perspective. But I think leaders could do a better job in being more compassionate, more empathetic, and to see the human behind the resource. And leaders are also struggling with that. And I think coaching and any other form of self reflection, or somewhere like where you could be really shown a mirror, would really help, because we all have it in us, we all have everything in us. It's just to be able to access what is relevant at that moment. So I think leaders are struggling with pressures of the world, pressures of performance, and then maybe everybody needs to be held, and maybe they also need to be heard. So, yeah.
Yes, and even if we look at the workplace and the resource availability right now, a lot of people are moving out of their city. They have different
Yeah.
people to now meet, they have different groups to interact with. So in this way, also the way you said, we are collectively lonely, but that
Yeah.
separation sort of makes us a different human. And if there is a little bit of humanistic approach in the way people deal with us and the way we deal with people, would bring that change that is required.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
So you
And
said, yeah.
yes. And you also mentioned that there is also pressure for leaders in terms of how they deal with the workforce. So, according to you, why do some individuals thrive under pressure while others will sort of like disengage? There is quiet quitting, people can't perform. Why do you think that phenomenon is there?
Hmm. So that's a very good question. Actually, pressure doesn't mean, just the number of hours, or like, or the time crunch, or a certain kind of thing. Pressure, if that is the kind of pressure, like, I think anybody can take it. Like, when an employee perceives pressure in the way they expect to be treated. The first question, I think, to any human mind in any kind of situation, workplace or otherwise, is, do I matter? Do I matter here? Am I valued? And irrespective of the pressure, if I think there is care for me and I am valued here, and if it is aligned to my purpose and to what I'm doing. So that's how, like, people work, right? Like, people, when if they're passionate about something, they spend like 18 hours working on that, and they never get tired. There is no pressure in that. And the timelines, or whatever, whatever the volume of the work, or the timelines, whatever, nothing matters, the quality, everybody can achieve it. But the whole thing is like, am I really living my purpose? Like, if I'm expecting some appreciation, am I getting it? Am I being acknowledged? Is my credit being, due credit being given to me? What's happening there? So all these are the questions that make the pressure, really sustainable or not. So once you are given that kind of safe environment, and if I perceive that, if I perceive that safety, that of course, like, this is my organization, this is my workplace, and I want to do this is the kind of work that I want to do, and so I'll work for even 15 hours. But then I'm assured that, my work life balance, or my health, or other aspects of me, my passions, they also are valid to the organization as well. My growth needs, all of them are valid to the organization, and the organization is going to take care of that. So, in those conditions, someone who is assured of those conditions will thrive, and the other person will succumb or maybe withdraw, because everybody has to kind of survive, right? Yeah.
Yes. Even in the books we talk about that it's not just limited to now diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have this quadrant called belongingness. And you
Yeah,
very rightly said that if it's not there, it feels like there is only one way transaction happening, but then company might only need my work and not me in this entire
yeah,
system.
yeah,
So very,
yeah,
very
yeah.
rightly said. I think now our audience and listeners have a very good perspective as to what what you believe in, what your philosophy is, and how today's episode will look like. Now let's sort of try to understand the hiring as a concept in modern day. In our last episode, also we tried to interact with our guest and understood if there is any serious problems, if there are any serious instances that we need to answer when it comes to hiring. So we'll try to sort of understand that tangent in the next segment now. So Madhuri, organizations are talking about talent shortage. Do you believe that there is truly a talent shortage?
Uh, I think there is less of talent shortage, and it's more of shortage of recognition of talent. So, do you really recognize potential? And do you recognize learning agility as one of the, as one of the most essential talents that that you need? And do you respect resilience? And do you look at values? What is the talent that you're looking for? If talent is skill, like I don't think there is a crunch anytime. I There are all kinds of skilled people. There are a lot of skilled people, especially in India. I don't think we are facing a talent crunch, but how you look at talent and how you're able to scout for it and what are you able to nurture, I think that defines what it is. Okay.
So when companies are trying to hire, there is this long procedure of filtering out candidates. We start with round
Mm.
one, round two, round three, round four. Do you think in this race of rounds, in this race of hiring the talent and filtering them out, companies are filtering out the candidates they want?
Yeah, I think this is, like something like it's between the devil and the deep sea kind of a situation. Like, because like if it's an attractive position, like you tend to get numerous applications, and then you have to, there is speed there, there is a time to close that gap. So you need that speed. So you need that filtering. But I think there is over dependence on pedigree and qualifications, and there could be a tendency to kind of, over filter. And the criteria, I think there is, it could be defined in a more humane way, where you kind of, you look at the values, you look at the person behind the resume, and then you look at their learning ability, you look at their resilience, you look at their lived experiences and how they have learned from that. And instead of, just focusing on certain qualifications or certifications or maybe their pedigree, like which college they are. So I think there is some overfiltering, and I think there is more scope for humanizing this process of scouting. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Again, all your conversations are coming back to being more human, and it's wonderful to see because it's so ingrained in you and your belief that no matter how different the question is, we have to come back to that root. We have to come back to that belief where we value the human, and maybe problems are getting solved automatically.
Yeah.
Yes. So the next question that we are sort of going to discuss is how much weight should we place on degrees, brands, and years of experience today while making sure that we're considering humans, but there has to be a differentiator, that has to be a merit to what people do. So how do people put weight onto this terminologies?
Yeah, I think they do matter, right? Degree, experience, and everything matters. And like while talking to my juniors or like, the youth, we generally think about what do degrees mean and what does pedigree mean. It shows you the ability to be disciplined, to pursue, right? To perceive, persist. So that is what it's shown, right? Like you can work hard, you can be there, persist on a topic, you can learn this, and you can succeed at it. That's what degree says. Like, but there are certain things that degrees don't say. So I am not an advocate of, too much emphasis on these things. Of course they matter. Like if someone has gone to the IIT, I would definitely give them that credit. This is a bright person, like here there's a bright resource here. But what am I really looking for? What am I really looking for? So I think this over reliance on this should be replaced with some proven wisdom, the value system, and most of all, the learning agility, and most important, I think, self-reflection, ability to self-reflect, understand, and be authentic and aligned to the company, organization. So, right, like if my needs are very different from the organizational culture or the organizational vision, then if I just scout by those pedigrees and the qualifications, my job description that I have published, then I will just end up with some person who might be brilliant, but either he is going to be frustrated or the organization is going to be frustrated. So I think there should be a cutoff, and there should be more emphasis on person, the person's ability to self-reflect, to learn from his or her circumstances, and to apply it and be resilient, and most importantly, again coming back to that, like to being more compassionate, humane, and kind. I am a fan of kindness. I say that, kindness is the highest form of intelligence. And one cannot be kind if he or she is not intelligent and not able to see the overall perspective, and even the polar opposite perspective.
Yes, yes. I think not just me, but a lot of people in the history who have done great writing would agree to you, because that's what we have been taught by art, by history, and by these people, that if you want to thrive, if you want to help the world, you have to have that kindness in your heart, not just with
Yeah.
other people, but with yourself as well. So
Yeah.
you also sort of indicated your answer in a way where we talk about potential. So I would like to sort of combine two questions here, that can hidden talent be identified during hiring process while we are hiring people? And what qualities in this hidden talent signals long-term potential that this candidate, if got hired, will thrive in my organization and will bring the results that I want?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I can sort of restate
Yeah.
the question. So in our earlier answer, we talked about um, how a human and the way we treat people, the way we nurture our talent, has to be surrounded with kindness. Now to follow up the same question, to follow up the same segment, can you also sort of highlight, um, number one, if we can identify hidden talent during our hiring process, whether it is possible, and if yes, how? And the next set of questions followed up by that is that what qualities, when we are looking at this talent, what qualities will signal that there is a long-term potential in this candidate?
Hmm. So yeah, so a hidden talent can definitely be identified. It's not an easy thing. It can be done, but it's not an easy thing. It depends largely on the interviewer's, abilities, and experience. So it's more intuitive, right? So I would say you could ask certain questions which are based on behaviors, reflections, and like what worldviews they have uh, collected, and how they have been inspired, and what were the conditions in which they flourished, or what were the conditions which were challenging for them. So through those behavioral and reflective kind of questioning during interviews, maybe to some extent you could find out hidden talent. And but I think it takes time, and it's like, it's more about willingness, openness, and that kind of culture in the organization. Like, does it allow that kind of time and that kind of resource? And are we willing to take that? It's a risky decision, right? Like, you're trying to identify something which is really not there in black and white on the resume, or which the candidate is not being able to say. So it's more of a coaching kind of an interview, maybe. So yeah, so it is possible. It's not very easy. That would be my answer. And coming to your second question about what would be the qualities that I would look for, right? So definitely learning agility, first of all, and curiosity, open-mindedness, and resilience. Uh, and yeah, I think these personality characters and compassion, and you know being willing to receive feedback, and uh, being willing to collaborate and be a team player. That's the most important thing. If I want to hire someone, is he going to fit into my culture or not? So, and what do I want this person to bring in? So the questions I will ask myself is like, what is this gap that I'm filling? What is the personality that I'm looking for, that which will nourish this role, and what role will nourish this person? So if they both match, and then I think, like, this person is great for my organization and this role, then I would go about it. But I would first, most importantly, look at how open-minded and agile this person is, because I don't want to hire someone who is fixed wherever they are, because it's like constancy is like death, right? So someone willing to change, and yeah, and has that enthusiasm.
So change is the only constant, as been said,
Yeah,
since forever is
yeah,
still very relevant, be it however modern we
yeah.
go. So when we talk about culture as well, which you mentioned in your answer, there is a term which is coming out to be in buzz. People are talking about it, people are demanding it. It's called psychological safety. And
Mm.
it has become a big time conversation in recent years. Why is it so important, and why people can't stop talking about it?
See, you can't thrive if you can't survive, right? Like, so psychological safety is like, it's like the
That
zero
was
step.
very good. I think I want that on my t-shirt, the way you said it. Very, very beautiful line. Yes.
So, like, if you are not at zero, like, how do you go ahead? Like, if I have to start, if I want to think about something, I was recently, like yesterday, day before yesterday, I was watching this Made in India, the story of Titan, and they celebrate their failure. They say the freedom to fail, the freedom to fail. And in many iterations and over years, they succeed at something. So they could do that because, they had that safety. The Tatas had that safety to let them experiment from scratch with, with something which was never done in India. So without that, there is no innovation. There is no there is no enthusiasm. And without safety, I wouldn't even open my mouth. I wouldn't share my ideas. And I would just I would be a robot, right? Like, I would be a robot. Like, you give me a patch to do, and I will do that patch, and then I will sit. And then I might be even scared to kind of, within that patch, if I want to do it in a different way, I would be scared. So if there is fear, then there is no flourishing. So psychological safety is like the zero step. It's like, it's not even, it's not even a luxury, it's a requirement. It's the basic.
So wherein a lot of companies sort of try to make psychological safety as their motivator. So in this two-factor theory, we talk about hygiene factors and motivators, and companies try to highlight that we give psychological safety. You will have that freedom, but it should be there. You might not need to speak it up. It should be just there. If it is not there, then it's a
True.
concern. But having it is like a hygiene factor. And you also
Yeah,
very
true.
beautifully, yeah, you very beautifully showed that how psychological safety looks in practice. The example that you gave, that how Tatas have given that freedom, and that brings in innovation, that gives empowerment to employees to perform, to bring in better outcome. So
Yes.
it is truly very needed, and it has to be there in
Yeah.
companies. Yes. So if we look at teams which has psychological safety, what are the signs that teams are feeling safe, and what are the signs that we can identify teams are not feeling safe, that psychological safety is missing?
Hmm. So psychological safety, how it will show up is like, like I'm thinking of, I have a vision in my head, like of something which happened earlier. Like there was a colleague of mine and he was being asked by my senior, why aren't you saying anything? Why aren't you saying anything? And he said, I have learned to be silent. And it stays with me, this has been a long time, maybe more than 15 years, but it stays with me, like the way the person said it. I have learned to be silent. So if there is no psychological safety, you will see that people don't speak up. You might lose on a lot of precious ideas. It might cost heavily to the company. And and people would be walking around in fear, and there would be a loss of well-being. Obviously there wouldn't be joyous interactions, and there would be, the brand identity would go down, like I am the brand ambassador of my organization, any employee. So if I am not a happy person, if I don't interact with people with trust, and if I don't believe in potential, if I don't believe in my juniors or my team or my seniors, then it's going to show up, right? So the lack of psychological safety will show up as silence, and maybe it will also show up as power over interactions, like where, someone is humiliated in public, or someone is, silenced just like that. And yeah. And if you have psychological safety, quite the opposite, there would be people who will not be embarrassed to ask a question, who will not be, um, who will not be scared to interrupt even a person above their hierarchy, and respectfully, of course, not with, like, I don't mean to say as arrogance, but without fear. Like even a junior would be able to talk to maybe the chairperson of the company without fear, and without fear of repercussions. They would be able to share, understand, and like share knowledge as well, like, and anything. And they, most important, they will be able to innovate, create, because without psychological safety there is definitely no creativity. There could be complaints, but definitely zero creativity. So yeah, so complaints and creativity, I think that defines, like, if an organization could be compliant if it doesn't offer psychological safety, but it can definitely not be creative.
Yes, I think it's a good time for companies to take note as well, that if your vision for 10 years down the line, if the decade long vision you have is to bring in more creativity, bring in more innovation, then you have to give people that freedom and that safety net where they're able to speak, they're able to think, they're able to act. Yeah, rightly said again.
Yeah.
So Madhuri, how can managers build trust before they actually need it? How do they do that?
Building trust is, I think it's a minute to minute, everyday process, and it's also long term. Like how you show up for them. Like, like if I can trust my manager, if I can depend, if he has told me something and if I'm assured that, he's not going to go back on it, if I don't need a written instruction, and if I'm not worried, so I become more trusting of him. So as a manager, I need to be more dependable, more reliable. I need to stay on my word, like, and I need to respect the other person as a person and to offer him that space to be real, to be real. And it doesn't mean that, like I give them a permission to do whatever they want, but there is a permission uh, to be themselves. There's a permission to try, innovate, and maybe a freedom to fail. But it's not a permission to be arrogant or ignorant of the organizational vision or the objectives. So I align myself to the largest objective of the organization, and I keep myself aligned to that without being hypocritical, or like, I don't set this different standards for different people. I don't have bias, and I am one amongst all of you. And it's a continuous process, right? And how I'm going to be there with you, and how I'm going to be there with you as a team, as not just as a person who holds higher power than you, uh, but as as a mentor, as a person uh, who is looking at your overall growth, not just, how what you're going to bring to the team and to the organization or to me. And then I give you your due credit. I acknowledge you in front of, my seniors, and I acknowledge you and I appreciate you genuinely. It's not a praise, right? So when I am authentic, the manager's first condition, I think the only condition is to be really authentic. And an authentic manager will always build trust. And inauthentic praise and good words, very good language, nothing is going to, kind of really build that trust. Yeah.
Yes, very rightly said again, because imagine a situation where somebody is working so hard, but that credit is taken by somebody else. The example that you gave of the colleague, that person might not have internal motivation to give his or her best in the work, because any which ways the credit's gonna go to somebody else's name. So very
Yeah.
important. Now let's sort of come to your research area, workplace dignity. So you did mention, we covered in your introduction as well, that you have been researching heavily in this area of workplace dignity. What does it mean in practical terms? Like how does it look? How do people practice workplace dignity?
So this is my research question actually, right? So it's very individual. People perceive it in different ways. So the most common ways are like respect, fairness, trust. This is how they perceive. And there are, like there are small incidences, like there are things like individually that they perceive as like if, and it's very person to person dependent. Like if I like to be noticed, and if someone kind of acknowledges me in public, so that is dignity to me. But if I don't like to be noticed, and if someone respects that, and if someone lets me be in the backstage, that's dignity to me. So it's like, it's from whatever I have derived from my research, it's about like the employee asking, like, am I seen as whole of a person? Like, do I have space to be myself here? And does anybody here care for what I am? So it shows up in different ways, right? Like it should be like I am able to hold on to my self-worth. I have some self-worth, and I'm able to hold on to that self-worth because of the work I do, because of the interactions I have, because of the potential that the organization sees in me and the opportunities it gives me. So this is what I have been able to derive until now, and I'm still working on it, and it's very nuanced, and it's like very delicate, and I love this piece of work really.
Yes, yes. I can't wait to read more about this research when you're actually like putting out something more tangible there to read for people. But do you think that people can be very talented and very successful on paper, but they still feel invisible at work? Do you think that part of dignity is also something that you've researched,
Yes.
you've read about?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's like, it's not being able to be yourselves, like, right? Like, I feel invisible, but then I put up a face of, or I put up a face of being very happy, very successful, and enjoying my job. And, and people, I have seen many people who feel that way, who feel invisible out of the company. They have an identity. They are like, they are someone to someone. They are like, they are looked upon as this, oh, okay, this so and so person working with so and so, the big company. But then they do really feel invisible. And this happens, I think it's the biggest dichotomy, which uh, it's the role of the individual as well as the organization and the team, and to solve it together. And I think it starts with the individual. And I think there is a huge role that organizations can play uh, by kind of, maybe introducing some kind of interventions, maybe a one on one coaching, maybe a group coaching, where just people feel like kind of, I'm seen and heard. It's not that I don't want to be seen by 100 people, or I don't want to be seen by the CEO. I just want to be seen as a human. So if that need of mine is met, all my success in those material terms makes a whole lot more sense. And it really helps me move from that, a performative kind of thriving to a real thriving space. So I think that should be the ultimate goal of any organizations, where each employee feels like, like they are doing their best work, they're contributing, and the organization is thriving because of that. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I think the huge credit if any organization is able to achieve it would be towards the coaches and experts like you. The interaction also we had at the very start of this podcast, the way you took interest in knowing me, the questions that you asked sort of reflects that this conversation is going to be two-way. So I think there is a huge weightage as to which coach is also sort of doing this activity, sort of helping organizations to navigate their way in this world. And if everything permutation combinations coming together rightly, then it's the benefit for employees to start with, and then organization at large, if we look at
Yeah.
it.
True. True.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Uh, do you believe that some people are very disengaged at work, even though they have very good jobs, very good titles, but they are just disengaged? What could be a potential reason in this uh, personality, this trait at work?
Yeah. You mean they have a good job, but they're still disengaged, right? Like they have a
Yes,
job which, yeah.
which
Yeah.
is like a dream job
See,
for people.
yeah. Yeah. So I have had in my interviews during my research, I have had many such situations, Like, and as I said, it's like a kind of a face that the employee puts up and tries hard to believe it. Like, like this is an important role, and I'm like kind of an important person, and this is the dream job of a lot many people. So when you're telling yourselves this so many times, there is a part of you which you're invalidating. And 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 it's longing to be heard, this part where it's saying that, what is more important to me. And given the current scenario, if you see, like, there are so many, not even nuclear families, it's like a family of four living in four different places, right? So there is an emptiness over there. Like, whatever success you might have achieved in your role, there is an emptiness because there is no balance. Because a human is not just the job, or human identity is not just, being an employee or being a leader or being a very successful businessman or whatever. Like, this whole identity, there are parts of this human being which, long for different things. Like, we need to have social relationships, we need to have time for personal, retrospection, introspection, and we need to have growth, we need to have intimacy, and we need so many things, right? And so there is, you feel disengaged because there are parts within you which are very dissatisfied. This is one part within you, and you are being you're being conditioned since your childhood that this is success. But there is a person inside you to whom you're yet to listen to say that these are not my longings. Okay, at some point of time, maybe I needed this identity as a big corporate leader, or maybe this person wanted a lot of money at that point of time. I needed this at that point of time. But now I need something else. I need engagement. Maybe I want to mentor people. Maybe, I want to innovate something. Maybe I want to leave a legacy. Or, maybe I just want to spend some quiet time meditating. I want to learn something new. So when this doesn't come out clearly, there's a conflict, there's an internal conflict, and that is also at a very subconscious level. So people are struggling to kind of, um, to think of their success. And I think Sadhguru once said, like, people are suffering their success. And that is what shows up as so much of disengagement and then quite quitting. And organizations don't have that space where where the people feel free to kind of express themselves, to be seen, and maybe then they can decide, right? So yeah, definitely these spaces are there, and it is the truth. And I think it's a very sad truth. It's very sad truth.
This is going to be one of my favorite questions and answer from this segment, because we hear so much about work-life balance. We hear so much about balancing your personal life with your professional life, and then we sort of claim it by saying, I have so many responsibilities. If I don't have money to put on the table, food to put on the table, how will I keep my family happy? But you rightly said that with passing time, this requirements will change, and will actually come back to that originality, to what matters.
Yeah,
But if we try to focus on it from the very start, I think we all will lead like a better life together.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
How so again, leaders try to do better. Leaders try to take people together. Leaders try to make sure that people are happy, people feel achieved when success is there. But they
yeah.
also have their hands tied. They are accountable in so many ways. So
Mm.
I think this answer will again hold a lot of weight coming from you. So can you sort of help us to understand that how can leaders balance this accountability with compassion?
Hmm. Yeah. I think this is a myth, or maybe this is a belief that corporate world has been long holding, that any leader, if he or she is compassionate, they are weak. They're like, like if you know about the disc analysis, like they say that leaders, they look for dominance in leaders. And uh, and and I think it's not a relevant model anymore. And I would also like to think it marry this concept of leadership with our Indian philosophy, which, Indian philosophy talks about the and philosophy. We don't think in ors. Like, if you know the shloka, Purnamada Purnamidam. So it's like, the everything is whole in itself. So to be able to see that, I need not come across as this tough, non-feeling, a machinistic kind of a person to be able to achieve something. I think that's the first step. So a human needs to exist as a human. And ultimately, leadership is all about stewardship, right? Like, you, how do you hold these people? So it is not essential for you to think, and I think it's essential for you to think that compassion and performance are not opposites. They do coexist. And in fact, the more human a leader is, the more humanistic his or her style is, and the more thriving the team is and the organization is. And I think it's like we are so deeply conditioned with this thing that I have to be a certain way, I have to scold, or I have to, be very aggressive. Only then will I be. So there are ways, there's always this middle path that Buddha talks about, and our Indian philosophy talks about and I very, very strongly believe, and I propagate this concept that you can be a compassionate leader and you can be driving a performance to, to its maximum, to its peak. So, and it's possible. You just need to look at the human as a human, and the human will bring his or her best out there, and that will benefit the organization. And that's how thriving comes out, right? Yeah.
Yes. Um, Again, very good notes for leaders to take, not just for people who are seeking job, but now we know what type of leaders we want to be led by. These are the people who should hold our hands. These are the people who should sit in the cabinet like full of trophies and full of these roles, goals, etc. So they can lead people rightly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
can organizations be again both? You did sort of nudge this answer in the previous question that we were discussing, but can organizations be both people centric and performance driven? Is it practically done? Have you seen examples of it happening?
Of course, right? Like, compassion, people centricism is not opposite of performance, is not opposite of performance. So we kind of confuse leniency
Yeah,
with kind of compassion. So when you talk about compassionate leadership, you also think in terms of boundaries, right? You think in terms of boundaries, goals, objectives, and then you also try and match them with the individual's holistic kind of objectives for him or herself, and how organization can also partner in that. So it's more about partnering. It's like a collaboration. So I think like it's like so I think I lost. I'm so passionate about this that like I get so carried away. So I do think that of course like performance and people orientation can exist together, and it should exist together, and it's a long time call, and the most successful organizations are where are people driven. If you look at any big organizations in the world, so you look at Google, there are like, Google takes work as play, and there are coaches for happiness over there. And if you look at any large organizations which are very successful, they're all people driven. They're all people driven. So if you are oriented towards people, performance will automatically come. People will drive their own performance. So people will become the mediator. You need not look
yeah,
at, you need not look at performance at all. You just get the right people, or like, you just give the right nourishment over there. Just see them as humans. And as humans are like omnipotent, I say. They could do anything, they could do wonders.
yeah, and that would solve a lot of problem. The problem that
Yeah.
organizations have about retention, the problems about people giving their real work, their real effort, all of it will get answered
Yeah.
if we just do one thing right. Just that one thing
Yeah.
right. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now let's sort of try to look at the people side of it, the candidates, the people who are in job market, who are trying to get the job, etc.
Hmm.
This segment we are actually focusing on the candidates and the
Okay.
questions and the confusions they might have, and they can of course learn something. They can have their answers from you, because you not just interview people, but you've also seen this entire dynamics of changing markets, changing times. So according to you, Madhuri, what weakens an otherwise strong candidate profile?
See, profiles look weak when, when there is lack of self-reflection or self-awareness in that. Like, so if I have to give you an example, like if I ask you, like, what are your hobbies? And you tell me, watching movies is my hobby. And then I ask you, I ask you a couple of questions around that. Maybe if I'm a skilled interviewer, I am trying to judge you, like how authentic you are. And because like I have nothing to do, my role has nothing to do with your passion for movies, but I'm just trying to see how authentic you are and whatever you're doing, how you're connected to it. So if I find that, if I find it as a plus, then I go and check out your skills and everything. So that is the first thing, is like the resume weakens when I see that there is no self-reflection. And if I think that it's generated, it is like customized for my, for the role. And it's so perfect for the role. So that kind of, it tells me something. Like if you cannot learn and if you cannot reflect on your mistakes, or if it doesn't show that emotional maturity over there, so then it's a, giveaway. It's a giveaway. So even strong profiles, but if there is a lack of that, I ask you a question or two, and then and I'll just ask you, what was the last movie you watched? And maybe you struggle. So if you're so passionate about it, so there is something around it, right? And or else you tell me this is the movie, and then I ask you, okay, what was it that you liked about it? Or and then there is a struggle. So I see that there is a gap there. So it's a giveaway. So strong profile, being despite being that strong profile, it doesn't. And maybe also sometimes like the way the candidate comes across. Hmm. So it could be biased also, but even bias has a lot of intelligence in it. Bias is also a judgment, and that uh, we have learned over the years, like certain judgments might come up because of the candidate's profile. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And also when candidates are sort of trying to show their achievements, and again, coming from like Indian culture, we don't promote that idea of talking about your achievements or making it very visible. But in the interview room, you have to sort of do it, because if you don't do it, how will you prove your worth? So can you also help our listeners and audience to sort of navigate this way, that how can they show their potential, but like not in a very derogatory way?
See, I'll tell you about what I heard from Marshall Goldsmith. He's one of the world's top leadership coaches. And he says that you Indians believe that someday someone will come and recognize me, will give me a gold medal and say, well done. So, and especially women, he says, women at workplace, you really like are taught to play it down, like whatever you have done, you just dismiss it. No, no, it's nothing. We did it together, or like, it wasn't a big deal, and such things. So you do not allow the other person to acknowledge your, your worth or your contribution or whatever, because that's humility. That's a value for us, right? That's how we are thinking. And then it's suppose I am the interviewer and I am looking at, I hold this value that, And now I want to select someone, and someone who comes and tells me that I have done this, I'm good at this is, I look at the profile and then I say, though, this is a very boastful guy, very arrogant. And then I might dismiss him. And then you underplay. You say that, you don't say much about yourselves and you tell, just answer in a minute, okay, I have done this, I have done this. And so I think, okay, he or she hasn't done much. So there you need a balance there, right? So I say, just be authentic to the point, look at the role and look at your inside. Why do I need this? Answer that question to yourselves. Like, yeah, answer that question to yourselves. And the question the interviewer is asking all the time is that the interviewers are not just judging. Interviewers are trying to ask, like, how does this person best fit my role? Or like, or like, how can this role benefit this person grow or be his best? A humanistic interviewer would look at it like that. So you answer that question of the interviewer in your resume. Like, don't play it up. Don't say that I have done A to Z, because nobody can do it A to Z. You can state your lessons learned. You can state in a couple of things, and then you should be willing to talk about it, and willing to talk in not in a boastful way, just to kind of connect to the humility within, and also to say at the same time acknowledge your own journey with some kind of appreciation, as you would appreciate, maybe a friend or like maybe a junior who is wanting to kind of be seen, right? In an interview, you're being seen for what you are, what you have done already, and what you bring here, what you're going to do for the organization. So just allow yourselves to be seen that way without being boastful. Yeah. Without limiting yourselves and without also, exaggerating on it.
Yes, yes, very truly said. And probably we also have to practice that in our daily lives. Like at my house earlier, we had a rule where we say, whenever we had some good achievement in our family, we'll sit down. Let's say if I got my admission, and then I'll just sit down and say, thank you, Mama, thank you, Papa, thank you to my younger brother. But then with time, we've also evolved this practice where we also include a line of thanking ourselves, that what I did right that made this decision come to like life. And I've observed that it has sort of allowed me to speak about my achievements without feeling like I'm being arrogant. So I think with practice
Yeah,
we can reach there. Yes.
yeah, 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 yeah. And definitely, there's a model called nonviolent communication model, and
Okay.
uh, it would really help anybody kind of, express themselves truly, truly. Yeah.
Very important. Yes. Now let's sort of move to our signature segment. What, according to you, is the biggest, greatest myth in the career? Uh, to answer that segment, I have a followed up question, which is something like there are resumes that people create, and there are great resumes that create great people, as being said. You think that is somewhere a myth or a true thing to say?
See, I think that resume opens the door, for anybody, but it doesn't create the person, right? Like, it opens the door, and the person's attitude and the person's interaction with the environment and alignment to, to the role, to the culture, and most importantly, to his or her own purpose. I think that defines who will be a great employee, and how much he or she is able to kind of um, express clearly what they what they need from this role. Because it's a mutual thing, right? The organization needs you, you need the organization. So if you're able to align that, if it's a beautiful dance, then it makes a great employee maybe a future great leader. And, but I don't think the resume defines how great someone would be. It would just open the door for them. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So if you are not investing time in your personality, in your personal development, resume might not that do job for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. A little bit of rapid fire to give our audience I think you have been very, very open. The way we see you on screen is the way you speak. Are your thoughts similar to it? So the rapid fire is gonna be a very easy segment for you. But we just sort of want to understand, according to you, what is more important and sort of help people to understand it in a fun way. So this segment is called Rapid Fire. How we'll start is that I have two very good options. I'll be saying it out, and then we have list of such two options, and then you can sort of say which you believe in more or which is more correct in your opinion, and then we'll just try to sort of navigate to our today's theme, which is about hiring and being more human in this entire process. So let's begin this segment. The first question is that whether you'll give more importance to potential or to experience.
Potential packed by experience.
Awesome. You'll give more
Yeah.
importance to degree or learning agility.
Learning agility, definitely.
Yes, I think we talked about it and sort of
Yeah.
navigated this answer the whole time. Do you
Yeah.
believe more in empathy or in authority?
Empathy, definitely. Empathy with clarity. Yeah.
AI recruiter or human recruiter?
AI assisted, led by humans.
Yes, again, a good one. One underrated workplace skill.
Listening.
Yes. One interview green flag.
Self-awareness. I think we spoke about this.
Yes, yes. And one workplace habit people often underestimate.
I think it's appreciation. We don't really acknowledge and appreciate much.
One leadership lesson everyone should learn.
So it's again humanistic management. People will do their best when they are really seen for who they are, trusted, and valued. Yeah.
Awesome. I think in today's entire episode, I was sort of trying to control myself because each answer had such good perspective to it. And I feel the amount of experience you have is so modernized in a way that it was very easy to relate. It was very easy to understand. So I think the listeners, audience, everybody will have great notes to learn, save, and use it in the future, be it for candidates, for companies, or for leaders, very, very, very specifically. So thank you so much for joining us in today's podcast by Scatalyst. It was an absolute, absolute honor to hear your thoughts and to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Nandini. Thank you for this opportunity to express my thoughts.
Thank you.